I found that there's one exercise that rules them all when it comes to addressing and fixing lateral pelvic tilt that consistently gets amazing results when implemented and executed properly. Now, 2 weeks ago, I released a YouTube video and article which I got great feedback on, and I sincerely believe is one of the best pieces of content I've ever put out. It's a deep, extensive guide on what to do about addressing and correcting lateral pelvic tilt and asymmetrical hips. So that's going to be the best place to go. But today I want to focus on one exercise that I find really helps, and I want to hone in on that today. I'm going to show you progressions and regressions for it, because this is really the ultimate exercise for addressing both sides and what they need individually in one drill. Because when we have lateral pelvic tilt, what we're usually looking at is one side of the pelvis that's hiked up and we're more weight bearing on that side. That side is in more of an internally rotated position of the hip, in an adducted position of the hip. So this femur is going to be more towards the midline of the body. On the other side, it tends to be more lower and more forward, more externally rotated and abducted, meaning that it's shifted relatively more away. So what we are going to want to do is obviously flip that. We want this top side to come down and to promote more abduction and external rotation. We want the other side to come up, and we want to get this femur to internally rotate better. And there's a way that we can do that. The muscles that help do this on the side that's higher are muscles on the back side of the pelvis, like your glute max and your glute med, specifically the back fibers, which help create external rotation and abduction. On the lower side, we want to go after our adductors, which are internal rotators, and also we want to get the obliques and side abs of this left side to help pull the pelvis up and rotate it back, which they're really good at doing that. Now, the first progression of this exercise is very chill. And this is of the utmost importance. Please watch this part of the video. People try way too hard on corrective exercises and things that are supposed to improve their posture and their movement. These types of exercises are not 1 rep max strength exercises. They are meant to be very chill, very relaxed. Think about it like this. We want to improve our ability to feel safe and efficient moving into these positions. Therefore, we want to promote more rest and digest parasympathetic input. We want to be able to breathe through this and own it and show our body, hey, I can be in this position. This is safe for me. Allow our nervous system to accept it. Rather than being very tense, fight or flight, sympathetically driven, that's going to be a threat to our nervous system, and that's going to have us kick on muscles we don't want to. We're trying to isolate things here, not squeeze. So again, literally 2 to 3 out of 10 effort. As long as you're feeling the things I'm talking about in the video, that's great. They might start to burn a little bit more as you progress through these, but again, it should not be a really intense effort. If you ever feel your neck or your low back kick on in any of these variations, you need to reset and not do any more, because that is an indication that you are compensating to get into this position. So only do as many breath cycles in these exercises that you can without feeling those things or something that you shouldn't. Okay, this first progression, we're just getting in this position where we are passively in a hiked up position of that downside hip. And we are also in an externally rotated and relatively abducted state on that top side. We're just going to be feeling our top side glute med work and rolling our pelvis forward more towards this downside hip. That's going to allow us to start to get the ball rolling. And if you're curious which side you need to have down, then you could check out that article and that video if you want, which will have assessments for determining which side you need to address in which manner. This is the introductory abduct and shift activity. What we're going to do first is ensure we're in an optimal setup position, because that is going to dictate the success of this exercise. So we want to have some object. It could be a little stool, it could be a little small bench, it could even potentially be a foam roller if you really need it to be, but something that is around the height of the level of our hip is going to be ideal here. Maybe a tiny bit higher or lower depending on what's comfortable for you individually. And we're gonna make sure that we have a straight line from our right heel to our right hip to our right shoulder and our right head. That's gotta be in place first. Meanwhile, on the bottom side here, we have this left hip at about 45 degrees of hip flexion. So if this was 90, we're at 45, and this knee is bent directly underneath the shin of that right leg there. And we also have a pillow underneath the low ribs of this downside right here. Now, this is ensuring that we have a little bit of a side bend on that downside, and we have a little bit of upper curvature right here. So this side shouldn't be sinking down. It should be actually a little bit curved up like this. And we have a slight tucking underneath us of this shoulder right here. We should have these shoulders relatively stacked on top of each other right here. And something supporting the head, whether that be a pillow or a yoga block, whatever works, as long as your cervical spine is neutral and you're not kind of cranked to one direction or the other. Okay, now we can just keep the arms chilling, hanging out, resting on the floor, keeping them comfortable. And to initiate the exercise, we're going to first just exhale through our mouth. And as we finish off that soft 5 to 8 second exhale, we're going to feel our low ribs come down. And that's what we want to maintain. Now, we're going to turn our zipper towards the downside leg right there, which is going to end up having us in this position where our pelvis and hips are completely parallel with that wall ahead of us. So our top hip shouldn't be rolled back like this. The zipper should be rolled slightly forward. That should help us feel a little bit of right outside hip. But if you don't have it yet, you should get it on this next step. You're going to, maintaining that straight line from the right heel to the right head, reach that right foot slightly away from you. And that should help you ensure you're getting that right outside hip muscle, that glute med muscle, so long as you're keeping that right hip rolled forward and you're keeping those ribs down. And that's all this exercise is. So really all you need to feel is that right outside hip muscle is working, or that top side outside hip muscle is working. You're maintaining a little bit of that side bend on the left side, and your low back and neck are relaxed. You're just gonna take chill, easy breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth in that position about 5 times. The biggest mistake by far is that people are gonna try way too hard on this exercise. All you're trying to feel is a little bit of that right outside hip, and that's it. If you're feeling your quad work really hard or the front of your hip, it usually means that you're locking out that knee and treating this like a strength exercise rather than just trying to have the intention to make your right side longer. And as you do that, you may feel like you get a little bit more curvature right here on this top side and a little bit of engagement of your side abs on the downside, and that would be okay. It's just keep the intention to be chill. About 2 to 3 out of 10 effort is all we need here. And also make sure that your neck and low back are completely relaxed. These exercises are so profoundly helpful for so many people that they are in my beginner body restoration program in later phases. So if you feel like you're not quite ready to get into this position comfortably yet, or you want other exercises that very much complement this, then check that out down below. The second progression, we're getting more integration of the obliques on that side, and also we're gonna start feeling a little bit more outside hip on the right. That's going to allow us to start to integrate these things more and more together. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to initiate the exercise by getting a slight posterior tilt of the pelvis. So if your pelvis is a bowl of water, you can spill it out the front and extend. You can spill it out the back and overly crunch, but we want to find that middle ground where your pelvis will be perfectly parallel with that wall right there. Okay, now what we're going to do is, maintaining this posterior tilt, we're going to roll that top hip very slightly forward. So that is perfectly square with the wall directly that way. And now what we're going to feel is probably a little bit of outside hip on the top side. We're going to get that more by very slightly reaching this top leg away. Okay, as he reaches that top leg away, he should never roll his hip back, nor should he lose the slight posterior tilt of his pelvis. Notice that as he reaches, he creates some length right here, and that should create a little bit more side bending of these bottom side abs right here. So what he should feel is his outside hip on the top and his bottom side abs right there. So that would be his left obliques and his right outside hip glute med area. If he's got that, that's awesome. A couple of things you can do to help yourself is that you can use your top arm to press down into the floor to create a little bit more side bending. Or you could also take this elbow right here and push it down into the floor, and that'll also help you get a little bit more side bending. You could even do both. The keys are, never, ever feel your low back engage or your neck engage? If you do, then you need to reset and figure out what you're doing wrong. Most often it's going to be the hip rolling back, or you're just feeling tension in your neck because that's what you like to do. So make sure your shoulders are relaxed. Okay, if you can master this position, feel your outside hip on the top and your side abs on the bottom without feeling any low back or neck for 5 slow breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, nice and controlled, then you're probably ready to progress. If you can't do that, work on doing this for a couple of days, maybe a week, where you can really master this for about 5 solid breaths. Finally, we're going to be getting now integration of the internal rotation musculature on this down side. So this is going to be the hardest progression. I do not recommend starting here. Work your way up to it over time. But let's say you're ready. What you would want to do is keeping this leg in the same place, everything engaged as normally. You're going to very slightly, maybe just 2 out of 10, push down with the outside heel of this bottom foot, which is going to raise this bottom knee off of the ground just a millimeter or 2. Literally not much more than that, because what that's going to do is it's going to internally rotate this leg and activate your inner thigh and a little bit of your glute med outside hip on the left side. Okay, now what you should feel is your outside hip on the top side, your bottom side abdominals, side abs, and your inner thigh outside hip on the bottom side. If you can do this, you're effectively integrating external rotation on the top side, internal rotation on the bottom side. I recommend everyone starts with the first progression, and they do that for about a week or 2 before moving on to the next one. If you progress too quickly, I promise you it's not going to do anything for you. And you'll know if you're getting success if your assessments are improving. So you can check out that resource if you want to see which assessments should improve when you go after this. For maximal efficiency, do 2 sets in the morning and at night of about 5 to 8 breath cycles. Never feel anything you shouldn't, and if you feel your neck or low back kick on, reset, shake it out, and go back at it again. Low effort, easy is going to win every time. It's always better than harder and more forceful.